The hook, a legacy in the snow. Imagine standing on the front porch of the house you grew up in, clutching a 3-day-old baby to your chest while the world turns white around you. You expect the door to open to warmth, to the smell of coffee, to a father who finally sees you. Instead, you realize something brutal. Your father would rather open that door for a winter storm than for his own flesh and blood. That was the moment I understood. Some families don't break you because they are strong. They break you because they've spent your entire life training you to believe you aren't allowed to fight back. But what Thomas Miller and my sister Lily didn't know, what they couldn't have imagined, was that the woman they shoved into that blizzard wasn't the same woman who would rise out of it. Within 24 hours, the world they built on my silence would begin to collapse at their feet. The arrival the night started quietly. The worst nights usually do. I had just been discharged from the hospital. Every step was a battle against the tug of delivery stitches. Every breath felt heavy with the exhaustion of a new mother. I had taken an Uber, my newborn daughter tucked into a borrowed, thin blanket, praying for just a few nights of peace. I told myself it was temporary, just a place to stabilize until I could find my footing. I didn't expect a celebration. I didn't even expect my father to hold my miracle of a daughter. But I thought, God help me, I thought I'd at least be allowed inside. As the Uber pulled away, the porch light flickered in that old, rhythmic way I remembered from childhood. The shadows it cast across the wooden boards felt like long, dark fingers reaching out to warn me. I knocked, softly at first. I hoped Lily would answer. My sister always loved being at the center of a scene. If nothing else, she'd enjoy the drama of my return. The face of betrayal, the door creaked open. It wasn't Lily. It was Thomas. He stood there with his arms crossed, his face a mask of hard, calculated disappointment, as if he'd been rehearsing this confrontation all day. You came back, he said, no relief, no are you okay, just a cold statement of fact. I just need a place to stay for a few days, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of the falling snow. Only until I recover, Dad. Please, I have no one else. He didn't look at me. He looked down at my daughter, my tiny, quiet miracle, and then back up, his jaw tightening with a familiar cruelty. This is exactly what I expected. You made your choices, Grace. You walked out at 18. Don't come back expecting us to clean up after you. From the living room, I heard the sharp pop of a soda can and Lily's voice drifting out like a poisonous fog. Is she finally here? Took her long enough. The hidden plan. Thomas didn't move. He didn't let me in. Instead, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. Lily told me everything. You weren't abandoned. You weren't struggling. You just didn't want the responsibility, and now you expect us to raise that baby. I shook my head, my mind racing through the fog of pain and exhaustion. I'm not asking you to raise her. I just need a safe place for one night. I'm in pain. I haven't slept. You shouldn't have come here, he snapped. We had a plan. We were going to help, and then you ran off and ruined it. My stomach twisted. What plan? That was when Lily appeared, leaning against the doorframe with a smile that made my marrow turn to ice. The plan where you give us temporary custody so I can help while you recover. But you disappeared. You didn't sign anything. Temporary custody, recover, help. The words were soft, but they hid a darkness that had been practiced for weeks. They didn't want to help me. They wanted to own the only thing I had left. I'm not signing anything, I said, my voice finally finding a sliver of iron. Lily rolled her eyes. Of course not. You never do anything the easy way. Thomas muttered loud enough for the wind to carry it to me. She's unstable. Postpartum or something? We tried to guide her, and now look. The shove my daughter stirred, a soft, pained sound escaping her lips. I adjusted her, feeling a hot tear run down my cheek before the cold could freeze it. Dad, please. I don't want to fight, I just need to rest. In a healthy family, that plea would have ended the night. But in a toxic one, asking for compassion is a provocation. It's the moment they punish you for having a need. Thomas stepped fully onto the porch, Lily trailing behind him like a shadow. This is your fault, he said. You brought this on yourself. What did I do? I blinked, stunned by the sheer weight of his delusion. You came back, Lily answered for him. You should have disappeared like you were supposed to. The wind whipped harder, stinging my face with ice. I tightened my hold on the baby. Dad, I just had surgery. I'm bleeding. I can barely walk. Please, don't do this. But Thomas Miller never cared about please. He cared about control. Give me the baby, he ordered. I stepped back instinctively. No, if you won't sign custody, you can't stay here, he said, his eyes narrowing. Stop whining, Lily scoffed. You always play the victim. Honestly, she probably deserves better than a mother who can't even hold her life together. Something inside me split, a quiet, terrible break. I had spent years trying to earn a place in this family, years trying to be the daughter they wanted. But in that moment, with the snow collecting on my shoulders and my baby trembling against my chest, I finally understood. There was never a place for me here. You need to leave, Thomas said. Right now, Dad, I have nowhere to go, I breathed. Not my problem. Then he shoved me. It wasn't hard enough to knock me down instantly, but my legs, weak from surgery and blood loss, buckled. I stumbled back into the railing, clutching my daughter as my knees gave out. Lily laughed. She actually laughed. Another push. Harder this time. My shoulder hit the post. I collapsed onto the porch, the snow immediately soaking through my clothes, pain blooming across my abdomen. My baby began to cry, a thin, shrill, terrified sound. Please, I begged, reaching for the door. Please let me inside. She's freezing. Thomas's face didn't change as he grabbed the handle. When you're ready to cooperate, maybe we'll talk. She's 3 days old, I screamed. Not my responsibility, he said. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. And the world went silent except for the roar of the wind and my daughter's weakening cry. The edge of the void, I curled my body around my daughter, trying to create a cocoon of warmth in a world that had turned into a freezer. My vision started to blur, the edges of the porch light stretching into distorted, ghostly shapes. I whispered promises I wasn't sure I'd live to keep. Mommy's here, stay with me, please stay with me. My fingers went numb and my teeth chattered so hard it felt like they would shatter. Then, through the wall of white, I saw them. 3 pairs of headlights, black SUVs rolling up the driveway like a fleet of dark angels. Men in long coats rushed toward me, their voices urgent but incredibly gentle. One lifted my daughter, wrapping her in a thermal blanket, while another slipped an oxygen mask over my face. Grace Miller, a man asked, kneeling beside me. We've been searching for you. Before I could ask who they were or how they found me, he whispered words that shattered everything I thought I knew. Your grandfather sent us. You're not safe here, grandfather. My father had told me for years that we had no one, that the world had rejected us. As I felt myself being lifted from the snow, I realized the woman who fell onto that porch was gone. The woman being carried to safety was someone new, someone with a history they had tried to erase. The gilded recovery, I woke up to warmth, not the gentle kind, but a stinging heat as blood rushed back into my frozen limbs. I wasn't in a sterile, cramped county hospital. I was in a private medical suite filled with ornate molding and cutting-edge equipment. Miller and Holt facilities. A man entered, dressed with the kind of precision that commands a room before a single word is spoken. My name is Daniel Hart, he said. I am the personal attorney for your grandfather, Charles Holt. The truth came out in waves, each one more shocking than the last. My mother hadn't been a burden or a failure as my father claimed. She was the daughter of a titan. My grandfather had never stopped looking for us. He had sent letters, made calls, and attempted every legal avenue to bring us home, but Thomas Miller had blocked every single one. He had returned correspondence and filed cease and desist orders to keep me in the dark. He wanted me to believe I was worthless because a woman who knows her worth cannot be controlled. The billion-dollar burden, you inherited everything, Grace, Daniel said, his voice level. $2.3 billion and majority ownership of Holt Industries. I looked at my hands, still bruised from the porch railing. How could I be a billionaire? I had spent the last 9 months calculating the cost of every diaper, every meal, every bus ride. But there was a catch, a knife in the heart of the miracle. My grandfather, Charles, had passed away only hours before they found me. He had a heart condition and refused to delay his trip to find me, despite his doctor's warnings. He died knowing they were on their way to save me, but I would never get to look him in the eye and say thank you. He left me a letter. His handwriting was strong and steady. You will learn the truth of your heritage, it read. The world may have taught you to survive alone, but you will never have to be alone again. He called me a fighter. He called me a leader. He told me to build something better than what was given to me. The training of a titan. I didn't have time to mourn. Not yet. Daniel and a team of experts moved into the residence and my transformation began. I wasn't just recovering physically, I was being armed. While I healed from the hypothermia and my reopened incision, I was put through an intensive executive orientation. I studied corporate governance, financial literacy, and strategic leadership. My father and Lily used to mock me for asking questions, calling me slow or naive. Now, I had the world's best advisors telling me that my survival instincts were my greatest business asset. I learned that I had been managing my whole life, managing a household with no money, managing my sister's whims, managing to stay alive. Corporate pressure is nothing compared to survival, one executive told me, and he was right. The surveillance of the past. As I stepped into my power, Daniel showed me the final piece of the puzzle, the evidence. His team had recovered security footage from a neighbor's house that captured the entire night on the porch. I watched myself on that screen. I watched my father shove me. I heard Lily laugh while my daughter cried. It was indisputable. It was cold. It was criminal. Will they be punished? I asked. They will face consequences, Daniel replied. When you decide it is time. I realized then that my father and sister had no idea I was alive, let alone that I was now their superior in every measurable way. They were currently facing bankruptcy and eviction, scrambling for a way to save themselves. They thought they threw away a burden. They didn't realize they had discarded the only person who could have saved them. And I was about to let them know exactly what that felt like. The mirror of power. The day I stepped into the Holt estate headquarters, the air felt thicker, humming with a gravity I had never felt directed toward me in my entire life. For years, I had trained myself to shrink, to soften my voice and apologize for the very space I occupied. Now, the elevator doors opened to a soaring marble atrium where people watched me with quiet curiosity rather than disdain. I tightened my hold on my daughter's carrier. She was oblivious that the world around us had just shifted on its axis. Daniel walked beside me, carrying the folder that was now an extension of his arm. Your orientation will begin in Conference Room East, he said. They know you're the heir, but they haven't met you yet. A flicker of my old life sparked in my chest, the fear of not being enough. But Daniel stopped and looked at me with an intensity that grounded me. Grace, your grandfather chose you. That alone holds more weight than any resume in this building. Standing among titans, we entered a room that looked like the command center of an empire. A long table of polished walnut sat beneath the Holt logo, which gleamed in gold. As the executives filed in, CFOs, legal officers, heads of strategy, I watched them trying to assess my power. Evelyn Price, the chief financial officer, approached me first. Miss Holt, she said, and I stiffened, still unaccustomed to the name I had worn for less than 24 hours. Daniel stood at the head of the table and made it clear. I was the legal heir and majority shareholder. Every corporate direction would now go through me. For the next few hours, I absorbed information like a sponge: market risks, revenue sources, and global holdings. I realized that while I lacked a business degree, I had spent my life managing crisis, logistics, and exhaustion with zero margin for error. When the COO asked about my experience, I told him the truth. I ran a household with no money. I raised my sister when my father refused to. I worked 3 jobs while pregnant. He didn't scoff. He nodded with respect. The predator's approach. While I was learning to lead, my past was crawling toward me, unaware of the trap it was entering. Daniel brought me a message. My father and Lily had requested a meeting with the Holt heiress to discuss their urgent financial distress. They believed I had vanished in the storm. They thought the heiress was a stranger, a deep pocket they could pick to save their failing business. Do you want to meet them? Daniel asked. I looked at my daughter, warm and safe in my arms, and felt a cold, absolute clarity. Yes, I said, but on my terms. I want to hear what they say when they think I'm not listening. Behind the glass, I stood behind a pane of mirrored glass in an observation room. My daughter slept beside me as the door opened and my father stepped into the conference room. He looked older, his posture sagging. Lily followed, her hair messy, her clothes cheap, a far cry from the expensive lifestyle she used to flaunt while I bled for every cent. They sat across from my representative, Andrew, and began to weave a web of lies so thick it was breathtaking. We're humble people, Lily said with a tight, practiced smile. We just need help, we're loyal. My jaw tightened as I heard words like loyal and devoted, words they had never offered me. The ultimate betrayal. Then Andrew asked about their family structure. My daughter Lily, my father said instantly. And when Andrew asked about the other daughter, the room behind the glass felt like it lost all its oxygen. Grace isn't involved, Lily said, rolling her eyes. She was unstable. She ran off. Honestly, we're better off without her. My father nodded, his voice hard. She's not part of our family anymore, but the final blow was yet to come. My father leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Grace had a baby, a girl. I believe that child could be leverage. If the heiress wants something from our family, we can offer the child. Grace would do whatever we ask if she wants her back. Beside me, my daughter stirred. I reached out and rested my hand on her tiny chest, feeling her heartbeat. Rage, pure and arctic, spread through me. They weren't just content to leave us to die. They were now willing to sell my daughter's life to a stranger for a loan. You heard enough? Daniel asked as the Millers left the room, still hoping for their investment. I looked at the mirrored glass, seeing only the woman who was finished being a victim. I want to face them, I said. I want them to see exactly who they threw away. The legacy reborn, the victory in the boardroom, was only the beginning of a much larger war. True revenge isn't a single moment of triumph. It is the slow, deliberate replacement of every lie with an undeniable truth. I moved through my new life at the Holt residence with a quiet purpose. For the first time, the silence around me didn't feel like a predatory tension. It felt like safety. I watched my daughter Charlotte sleep in her sunlit room and whispered a promise. She would never know what it felt like to beg for warmth or love. I wasn't just recovering, I was evolving. Under the guidance of Daniel and a team of mentors, I stepped into the CEO succession program my grandfather had meticulously planned. I studied leadership not as a way to dominate, but as a way to protect. I learned that empathy, once weaponized against me, was actually my greatest shield. As I reviewed the files on my father and sister, their trail of debts, lawsuits, and manipulations, I realized that leaving them wasn't abandonment. It was the ultimate act of self-preservation. The final legal blow. Just as I began to find my footing, the past tried to claw its way back. My father, in a fit of desperate panic, filed an emergency custody petition for Charlotte. He framed me as mentally unstable and unfit, claiming I had run into the storm voluntarily. It was his final attempt to reassert dominance, but he didn't realize I was no longer the girl he had broken. We walked into Judge Whitford's courtroom not as victims, but as an army. While my father and Lily performed a scripted act of paternal concern, we presented the cold, hard evidence. The medical reports of our injuries, the financial stability of the Holt estate, and the devastating neighbors' recording. When the sound of the lock clicking filled that courtroom, the judge's face turned to stone. He didn't just deny the petition, he suspended their visitation rights indefinitely and branded their claims as malicious. As I walked out, my father hissed that I had ruined them. I looked him in the eye and told him the truth. You ruined yourselves the night you threw us into the snow. The Holt Foundation, a new beginning. 5 years later, the story of the girl in the snow had become a global symbol of resilience. Standing on a TEDx stage, I looked out at an audience of thousands and realized that my pain had become a doorway for others. I told them that surviving wasn't enough, we had to make meaning out of the ashes. I had used my grandfather's billions to create the Holt Foundation, which has since helped over 15,000 women escape toxic environments and build new lives. I'm not their hero, I told the crowd. I'm their mirror. I wanted every woman to know that a door doesn't close unless another one is waiting to be opened. My father and Lily eventually faded into the background of my life, becoming nothing more than distant shadows. When they applied for help from my foundation under false names, I didn't seek revenge. I simply set a boundary, rejecting the application while providing them with a list of external programs. Boundaries aren't mercy. They are survival. The greatest revenge today, my life is defined by joy rather than escape. I watch Charlotte, now a bright and brave 5-year-old, start her journey into the world, and I know I have kept my promise. She will never doubt her worth. The greatest revenge wasn't the wealth, the power, or the public exposure of those who hurt me. It was the fact that I chose softness in a world that tried to break me. I am no longer the woman they threw away. I am the woman who rose. And to anyone standing in their own storm right now, the snow doesn't last forever. Your spring is coming.